Brad Friedman on the line with us. He is the publisher and founder of the Brad Blog. Brad Blog, BradBlog.com is the website. Brad, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom. Great to be back. It's always anything goes, even with me here.
There you go. Thank you. And I should add, you're probably one of the smartest guys in the country in general, and in particular with regard to voting issues. And I wanted to ask you, what the hell happened in Kentucky?
Don't ask me. Ask the voters. And actually, don't ask the voters. They've already spoken. Ask the election officials what the voters said. Ask them to count the paper ballots. I mean, this is, fortunately, we now, over the past few years, Kentucky has been moving away from those 100% unverifiable touchscreen voting systems to hand-marked paper ballots. That's the good part. The bad part is they're still running them through optical scan computers that nobody bothers to verify to find out if they were accurate. And particularly, given what we know about this election, given the fact that prior to the election on Tuesday, you had about 5 different independent pollsters using totally different methodology, all coming up with the same result.
And that result was what?
That Democratic candidate, Jack Conway, the Attorney General, the popular Attorney General, was likely to win by anywhere from 3 to 5 points against this very bad Republican candidate, Matt Bevin. And then Matt Bevin, for some reason, is announced as the winner by about 9 points. So this is almost a 15-point swing from just days before the election until the results are announced. And while those results could be correct, the fact is nobody in Kentucky actually knows if they're correct because nobody has bothered to count the ballots. We've had this conversation, Tom, over the years in so many similar races, and it is absolutely maddening.
And it's always the Republicans who are winning in these situations. I don't recall any races where the Republican was polling ahead and the Democrat won. Why do you think, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I'm going all the way back to 2000, the time that I've been paying attention to this in a serious way and writing about it. And why do you think that is? Do you think that we're looking at hacking, basically?
Well, you know what? I'm very, very careful when I cover this stuff to not speculate because we don't need to speculate. We can just count the ballots. But we have seen instances where systems can be easily hacked. Where just last week in Pima County, Arizona, for example, you had an election official caught on videotape breaking the security seal on the central tabulator in Pima County, Arizona. That's Tucson. You've had in Kentucky, you have a rich history of election fraud and even voting machine manipulation. A few years ago, you remember we reported on this conspiracy in Clay County, Kentucky, where about 6 or 7 top-ranking insider election officials, including the county clerk, the district court judge, the school superintendent, were all sentenced to jail for election fraud over decades, to 156 years in jail, all told. So, yeah, those things happen. Conspiracies happen. Insiders do manipulate these systems, but they also simply fail. The software fails. We've seen elections in Palm Beach County, Florida, not many years ago, where the computer results announced a whole bunch of losing candidates to be the winners and a bunch of winning candidates to be the losers. And again, we only found out once we did a hand count of those hand-marked paper ballots, which we have in Kentucky. They're just not bothering to actually count them. They're allowing this speculation and concern about what the hell happened to win the day rather than verifying the intent of the voter.
So, why don't we routinely do this? You double check these things. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and my mom was, League of Women Voters, and she would show up at every election and be the person who checked you in to vote, those volunteers who sit there at the table and look at your name. And when sometimes it was on these mechanical machines that we had back then, but also they had paper ballots. And when they were counting the paper ballots, there was a Democrat and a Republican there to make sure that the count was right.
Mm-hmm. And that's what it should be, not just a Democrat or a Republican, but people from all parties, people from the entire public, and they should do it the way they do it up in New Hampshire in 40% of the towns. Polls close before those ballots move anywhere. They are taken out in front of everybody, in front of all parties, in front of all video cameras, and they are hand counted before the ballots move anywhere, and they often finish before the computer optical scan counties finish. I think the reason we don't do it anymore is in no small part, Tom, you'll remember since 2000, there has been a push, largely by Republicans, but Democrats, to their shame, have gone along with it to say that, people can't count ballots. Computers are much more reliable. And then in 2004, they said, never mind those computers. The problem is the exit polls. We can't trust those exit polls. Let's discredit those. This year now, the Lexington Herald leader has just fired their pollster, not the exit pollster. They don't do those anymore in Kentucky. This is the pre-election poll. They've now fired the pollsters, blaming the pollster for being wrong, even though that pollster had the same result as about 5 other pollsters. So there's this discrediting of hand counts, of exit polls, of pre-election polls. And Democrats too often go along with it, and the question is, well, what the hell are you going to base anything on if you don't count, if you have no protection against fraud, et cetera?
Brad, would it take Jack Conway filing a request with the Secretary of State to do a hand count? I mean, what's the process, and what are the possibilities in the minute and a half or so we got left, 2 minutes we got left? What are the possibilities that such a recount will actually happen in Kentucky? Is there any way that we can help stimulate?
The candidate, I believe, and I don't know Kentucky recount law well enough yet. Candidates can usually ask for a recount if they want to. Candidates often don't do it because they're afraid of being, tarred as a sore loser, a conspiracy theorist. I mean, what really needs to happen is that the citizenry in Kentucky and elsewhere need to make public records requests. They need to get at the poll tapes from each and every precinct at the state. They need to, demand that somehow audits be done, post-election audits of every single ballot be done. But really, it's a matter of moving forward and letting people know that if we have a system where you have hand-marked paper ballots, as we do here, but we don't bother to count them, this problem is going to come up time and time and time again. And instead of blaming, pollsters and voters and everything, why don't we just count the damn ballots? It's the same refrain I've been making with you on this show and at bradblog.com and on my own broadcast for about a decade now, Tom. Count the ballot. Just
routinely, even if it's just sample counts. Let's,
that's better than nothing, I guess. But as we saw, after the 2004 election in Ohio, they gamed the sample count in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, and they sent a couple of the top election officials to jail, where they were sentenced to the maximum in jail for gaming that sample count. So I'm just saying, we have paper ballots. Let's just count those paper ballots. It seems kind of rudimentary, but apparently it's quite controversial these days, and I don't really understand that.
Yeah. But these are because of our kind of distributed system of voting. This is up to the state. There's no federal law that could mandate that, is there?
There is not. I mean, there are certain things that the federal law could do if we wanted to, because we have done it before in regards to elections, federal elections, Congress and Senate and so forth. But largely, yes, this is left up to each and every state.
So if you're listening in Kentucky,
very few of them bother to count.
Right. So if you're listening in Kentucky, start raising some hell. Brad Friedman, bradblog.com. Thank you, Brad. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.